Well, in fact, the first confirmation now coming in, businessman Anil Ambani, against whom a lookout circular has been issued, which essentially means that there are travel restrictions that have essentially been opened. In fact, the Enforcement Directorate has basically made the move after an ECIR was basically registered against Anil Ambani. Remember, Anil Ambani's name also figures in the predicate offence, which is an FIR that was registered by the Central Bureau of Investigation. This comes at a time when multiple companies linked to Anil Ambani have been raided by the Enforcement Directorate. 35 locations where the searches have been carried out, 50 companies that have come under the scanner of the Enforcement Directorate. The basic charge that has been levelled against companies linked to Anil Ambani. They've allegedly received funds, loans from Yes Bank, and this was defrauded. Not just one tranche of loans that were allegedly received, but multiple tranches of loans that were received from banks like Canada and a few other loans that have basically come under the scanner. In fact, we are given to understand in terms of repayment of the loan, some part of the repayment of loan has actually happened through cash, some through companies which are non-functional, and because of which, remember, the Enforcement Directorate is now basically looking at that where exactly was the money essentially used, because the funds that were received as loans were diverted through shell companies. So finally, who's the ultimate beneficiary here is something that the Enforcement Directorate is looking at. The lookout circular has already been issued, which means there are travel restrictions that have been imposed against businessman Anil Ambani. Well, in fact, for 3 days at a stretch, searches were basically carried out at multiple locations. And these locations are where Anil Ambani's companies are located. In fact, we are given to understand multiple digital evidence was gathered by the Enforcement Directorate. Now, remember, this is at a preliminary stage. There is already a response that has come in from Anil Ambani. In fact, stating the company has essentially stated that it does not have any impact as far as the financials of companies of Reliance. In fact, what they have essentially said is that these loans were taken at a period when Anil Ambani was not even part of the board, and they've basically deflected this entire decision on the board. Now, that is something that has come under the investigation of the Enforcement Directorate. Not just the Enforcement Directorate. Remember, other financial institutions have actually stepped in. SEBI being one such institution that has also written to the Enforcement Directorate with regards to these very loans that were received, and there was a dramatic change in the financial transactions that have essentially taken place, and that is the reason why, remember, it has now come under the scanner. Anil Ambani so far hasn't made any appearance so far before the Enforcement Directorate. On 5th of August is when he has now been asked to appear before the Enforcement Directorate's headquarters here in the national capital. This after the FIR was registered against businessman Anil Ambani.